I want to start by thanking you, Judge Sharon Keller, if you're here, if you're watching somewhere. Remember, you can watch it all over the building. And of course, we, what do you call it, live streaming it. So it is being shown that many people who are keeping up with this who are not in the room. But thank you for your leadership, Jim Bethke and his entire staff. I want to thank, I want to give you a little history. My staff wrote a good speech, and they're nervous, but we just posted it online. So if you want me to read it to you, I'll read it. But it is a very good speech, and I will try and follow some of it. But I'm going to tell you what I know best about the politics of how this happened. To be honest with you, this would not have been an issue on the top of my agenda when I came to the state Senate 22 years ago, in part because when I was elected, since the statute of limitations has run, I didn't have a damn agenda. I worked for a very popular member of Congress that you all are too young to remember. The professor introduced me, made reference to Mickey Leland. And even when I went on city council, I was still like an ex officio staff member. For my staff members who plan on leaving, remember that. You never get away. And he was taking a trip to Ethiopia. They were having that famine there in Ethiopia in the late 80s. And I got bumped off of the plane because his new chief of staff said there are not enough women on the trip. I know you the running buddy, but I'm the AA, which is what they called the chief of staff back then, administrative assistant. So I'm going, you're not going. So those plans you had on the back end of leaving Africa, where you and a congressman were going to go over there to some wedding and see your friends in Israel, forget it. I'm taking this trip. And of course, for those of you who are students of history, that plane crashed, a rather dramatic ending of a relatively young but complete life, 20-some-odd people on the plane, including my dear friend who took my seat. So I've had a bad day, Tony, by the way, since August of 1989. So when I didn't run for Congress with my big ego, you got to have an ego to be in this business, I think so many people were shocked with Councilman Ellis's ego that he didn't run for Congress when I decided to run for the Senate. I think some of them gave me a pass. So I came here without any opposition in the Democratic primary. In fact, I didn't have any opposition, period. It's a special election. And I've been blessed with not having a lot of opposition since I've been here. Here's the point. I didn't have an agenda. So I hired these bright young people to work for me. One young kid who just gotten out of Brown University, and I may have been paying him $20,000 a year for his Ivy League degree. But he was a believer. Bright eyes, nuts. Ponytail on the back of his head. And I said, if you weren't so smart, I'm in here trying to blend in with these people, act like I'm trying to get along with everybody, and you show up here with a damn ponytail on the back of your head. So you get your blue suit, white shirt, red tie, and hide that ponytail since you won't cut your hair. It was really his idea. I said one day to my staff, okay, look, these people elected me. I had the good fortune of getting here without any opposition. Now I need an agenda. And I had thought about this a lot. And I decided, you all get out here and get me an agenda, you're all fired. You got 2 weeks to come up with a legislative agenda, or you are out of here. So get ready. So his sister worked for the public defender's office in Los Angeles County. And so one of the things was an early version of the Fair Defense Act that we put in. That person, by the way, is Mark Strama, who's now a member of the Texas House of Representatives. So first I want to thank my staffers, old ones who are not here, and the current ones who work with me now. I remember in 2001, there was a young woman. First of all, we passed a version of this bill in 1999. You know, we meet every 2 years. And Governor Bush vetoed it. The bill did absolutely nothing. Nothing. In fact, every time one of my colleagues said, hey, Rodney, look, I mean, you're giving a speech, you're giving your Gideon stuff, you know what I mean? I didn't know for Bello then, but hey, I had it going. Didn't know you as well. I had the stuff that said, sounds real good, but you got to change this. I said, okay, I changed that. Someone with rural legal aid, Jerry Wesovich, came to my office and said, Senator, if you just pass a bill and force every commissioner's court in the state of Texas to vote on whatever their system is, just vote that it's all right. He said, I think I can file a lawsuit. And then that would encourage, even if I can't win it, it would encourage some changes legislatively. Because sometimes lawsuits give us the political courage to do things we know we ought to do, but cannot do in this building. Yeah, I don't know if Westovich knew what he was talking about, because whoever I had as chief of staff by then, Brandon, this was ahead of you in 1999, didn't really tell me whether or not it made sense, but I tried it. So that's why I wanted the bill down. Governor Bush vetoed that bill. I remember being with him at a press conference at Old Foley's, now Macy's, in Houston, to sign the sales tax holiday bill. And he said, Ellis, I'm getting all of these letters in about vetoing that bill of yours. The judges are upset because they weren't involved in the deal. And he said, I'm getting a lot of letters from your friends, African-American lawyers and Hispanic lawyers, who are telling me to veto this bill. So he said, hey, I'm going to give you a heads up so you can start calling your press conferences. But the bill's dead. Okay, he vetoed it. During the presidential campaign, that bill got a bit of press. And during that presidential campaign of then Governor George W. Bush, a spotlight was put on our criminal justice system in Texas. And I don't think any of us were really that proud of what we saw, because it made us take a good, serious look at ourselves. And to the credit of my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats, when we came back in the 2001 session of legislature, I think that was a real commitment to change some things. Not to go as far as I wanted it to go, but to change some things. Minor footnote in history, I did chair the Finance Committee in 2001, and I suspect it might have helped a little bit. I had a young staffer that I assigned to just work on this issue, if she's listening, Hannah Lieberman Dershowitz, of Alan Dershowitz fame. She married his nephew. They were dating back then. Her husband's a nuclear physicist, does some work for people who go up into space. But to give you a sense of her politics, I mean, she's about like Alan, very combative. She's in Los Angeles now. Make sure you send her this tape, Brandon, where I think everybody on the staff wanted me to fire her. Here's a young woman who left Fulbright and Jaworski, probably making $150,000 a year then, but she said it wasn't meaningful. It didn't make her life fulfilling, which is why she came to work for me. I may have been paying her 40, 45, but she single-handedly worked very hard on that bill. If he's not in the room, I want you to tell him. A key player on getting this bill passed was Judge Glenn Whitley. Inside story, but I know I was wrong when I did it. This bill had made it out of both houses. You know how to get a bill out of the House, get it out of the Senate, but there were differences, so we had to go to a conference committee. So the bill's coming out of the conference committee, as I recall it. I traveled to Africa a lot, so I had some African state parliamentarians, about 10 of them, waiting to visit with me. Most of them spoke English, some of them not all that well. So I'm going to my office, the chairman of the House Calendars Committee, who's a dear friend of mine, Glenn Lewis, who's chair of the Board of Regents of your university now, professor who introduced me earlier. Glenn walks in, last minute, this thing's about over. I'm stressed out trying to get my budget passed. I had to tone down my philosophical concerns because I thought it was important for that budget to pass unanimously. I had a lot of stress on me. And I think I was on, remember how good I was looking? I was on those diet pills, Judge. So I was wired up, you know, I'd gotten back down to high, I'd looking good. You know, but I'm stressed, can't sleep at night. You know, remember those diet for Fin-Fan. I didn't sue. The doctor told me there were side effects. Hair loss, memory loss, and a bad attitude. I said, well, I got that now, give me the pills. But so I'm hyped up. And Judge Whitley, he was a county commissioner then, and Glenn Lewis come in. And they would have killed the bill. I don't even remember what their concerns were. I just knew procedurally it was too late. There's no such thing as sending that bill, rejecting that bill from the conference committee report of the House and Senate, and go, I don't even know what they want to change. All I knew was it's too damn late to change it. If it had to go back, that was it. And I'd been fooling with this bill since 1990 when I got here. Put a bill in 91, but Mark Stroma came up with this thing from his sister in maybe March. I guess I came February 90, about March, April, we had a bill. Ledge Council was drafting for us. So I went nuclear on then Commissioner Whitley. You have no idea the awful things, foul things that can come out of my mouth. Just no idea. And I never will forget, you know how I'm sure these judges know how lawyers do it when they get in the acting scene, like King Louis, whoever it was on the video I saw. I was acting. I was faking it because I had to scare him. But I got in the zone so deep. If Commissioner Whitley or Representative Lewis had moved, I would have been before the Court of Criminal Appeals because they would have been able to file for assault and battery. So you tell him I do want to apologize, and I'm glad he has not held it against me. I'd like to both forget and hope he has forgotten, but it was an encounter. It was helpful because I went so crazy. And I'm sure Tarrant County had a few other things in the budget that we didn't discuss, but they let it go. But look, it was tough. It was tough getting to where we are. I noticed in the earlier presentation, Tony, someone made reference to the innocence clinics that the court is funding. I want to say structurally just how important those are. Part of what we don't have in this space is an institutional process for advocating for these reforms. All of us in the legislature have attention deficit disorder. We're going to meet for 140 days every other year. Sometimes people will come in discussing some bill I had last session. I don't remember what I did last week because we're doing so many things. You got to have some institutional structure here, experts, advocacies in this space. I want to encourage us to look at a way to fund the private law schools as well. We fund private law schools. There's only $100,000. We give them, for a while they were getting Texas grants, and now they've always gotten tuition equalization grants. I mean, there are ways to do that. They can use TEG, you know what I'm talking about, the Texas. They can get scholarship money from the state even to go to law school at South Texas. It's not that much money. And South Texas and St. Mary's do a very good job. In some ways, these journalism schools have played some role in this space. I want to stress that. Where's that little button that I push? This kind of gives you a sense of just how far we have come over the years in terms of what we have spent on indigent defense and how it has increased over the years. Now, for some of my colleagues, they would look at that and feel like, oh my God, are we going overboard? That's a heck of a jump. From 90 million in 01 to 195 million, you know that was no state funding. Go to the next slide. Zero state funding. There may be about 3 or 4 states now who do zero state funding. So Texas has come a long way, and we ought to be very proud of what we have done. Look, I'm not all that proud of how we do it, but you take what you can get. This money comes from a court fee. And historically, I'm one of those. Former senator who's now deceased, Senator Gregory Luna, was usually the conscience in the Senate, and he'd make the case, you're going to make the court system unaffordable for working class people when you keep slapping these fees on. I can remember a couple of sessions back when we were broke then, maybe 03, and Senator Duncan had a proposal to give the judges a pay raise with a court fee. One of the most conservative judges in Texas agreed with me philosophically. What you do is put the judge in an inherent conflict position, because if there are not enough convictions, they won't have enough money to get the pay raise. And I would tell the judges, come on. I mean, if you can't get us to give you a pay raise when our retirement is tied to it, please. But so we didn't use GR. We gave the judges and still fund a part of the judges' pay raise, which is well-deserved, with a court fee. And I'm giving my speech, got some documents in there. It was sounding pretty good. And Senator Duncan said, you know, you're really sounding good, Rodney, and I think you have a point, but I'm going to have the votes. So I'd like to find a way that I can get you to either vote for this or be quiet about it. So he said, why don't you just think about it? And then he mentioned a couple other bills we're working on together. We have a peace Republican from Lubbock, and we get along very well together. So I thought about it over the weekend. I came back and told him, hey, I got it. Well, what do you want? Whatever he was asking for. Maybe he's asking for $6 as a court fee. I said, Robert, my daughter would never come ask me for $60. She'd ask me for $100. People do rounded numbers. No, this doesn't add up. Instead of $6, I want to make it $10. And I want to take that other $4 and I want to put that in indigent defense. He said, well, I thought you were against regressive fees. I said, I am, other than when it's for a progressive cause. So as it turned out that session, you remember, Bethke, it was such a great idea. I used that concept to do a juror pay raise and to go get my juror pay raise bill passed in another committee. And then I think I had a blow up with Terry Kill about something, and poor Senator Duncan's bill ended up dying. And did he give me a hard time for stealing his method of funding, go get my bill passed in another committee? I think I got in a fight over one of you all's bills, the court's bills. I can't remember what I was in that argument with Representative Terry Kill about, but in a special session, he came back and got his bill passed. More attorneys are being appointed, more public defender offices, new and innovative programs as a result of the Fair Defense Act. And that is a very positive thing. In 2001, we only had 7 public defender offices in our 254 counties. Today, we're at about 18 public defender offices with some type that serves 100 counties. 100 counties being touched in some way with a public defender out of 254. I want to particularly commend the folks in Lubbock County. In Lubbock County, they come up with a very innovative approach. I don't necessarily just push for a public defender. They've adopted a system that includes managed assigned counsel system, something that Senator Jeff Wentworth from Bexar County helped me lead the fight on, and we got it passed this last session. Or they have regional public defender offices like the Capital Public Defender Office at Lubbock and satellite offices around the state. The Lubbock County Commissioners deserve high praise for what they have done. I want to make that point when I say Lubbock because it's West Texas. When I go in there, I take somebody who has a concealed handgun permit when I go in. But they have done just really forward thinking. I want to commend them. I want to commend my county, Harris County. You made reference to that in particular. That's important. And for all of you here in Harris County, I want to personally thank you for what you have done. And I want to encourage you to do more to make it work. You know the stats. We send more people to death row out of Harris County than anywhere in the world. Maybe 2 countries. They might have a larger percentage that go to the death chamber from Congo, maybe China. They don't keep the stats, but it's way up there. Look, the criminal justice system is a government program. Nobody says those of us in government get it right all the time in any other sphere of public policy. More people you send to jail, the greater likelihood that a mistake will be made. It's not your fault. Look, I make mistakes all the time. Sometimes I try to hide them, at least till after the election. But hey, make mistakes. That's the nature of it. You know I chair the board of the Innocence Project. I'm real proud, at least there's a civil dialogue going on with me and the folks in Williamson County over this latest case. Let me tell you, that shattered the confidence of some people who were coming in there like Rambo. You know, we're all human. We're human beings. So we need to look at what we can do to make Harris County work, because if it works there, it's a model for other counties that are much more difficult. Norm, I know you're in here somewhere. I want to tell you just briefly, if I can, on that battle when it got started in Harris County. The Fair Defense Act has a provision in it I wish I could change, and y'all ought to think about it as a recommendation. One judge has to agree that they want to do a public defender or manage assigned counsel, a change. You got to have 3 county commissioners. You got to have the vote of commissioners court to do it. And then you got to have 2/3. What percentage is it, Jim? Over a majority of the judges to agree that they'll make the change. I put that in there because I had to get the bill passed. In this building, you ask for what you want, you take what you can get. Look, you can make the case that it encourages consensus. We don't encourage consensus everywhere else. The commissioners, county commissioners, you ought to tell them it's no longer just roads and building stuff and folks who want engineering contracts. Biggest part of your budget is health care and it's criminal justice. And you got to ask tough questions about what people are doing. And you ought to have some respect for what our Constitution says in this space. Not just to give you a decision. Go back and read the Constitution. I mean, as lawyers, we ought to have some respect for the ABA principles that essentially say it's an inherent conflict for the judge to pick the lawyer for the accused. Unless you want to go set up a system when a judge picks a prosecutor too. But we ought to do everything we can to make sure that that system is going to work in Harris County because it means so much for the rest of this state. Tony, will you hit it for me again, if you don't mind? Spangenberg's report, to give you a sense of what we're doing in Texas, is still not nearly enough. Now, patted us on the back and praised us, but just think about it. We went from 0. Now Texas is ranked 48th out of 50 states at $7.16 that we're spending per capita. Most indigent systems are funded primarily by state government. We're not going to get there in Texas, but 37th out of 50 states in a portion of funds provided by the state at 12.3%. Look, it's all coming out of taxpayers' pockets, by the way. Politically, I assume the reason they do it in most places statewide as opposed to the county is because we are a little more removed from people. The assumption is on the issue that may not have as much public support, we can put it in our budget and kind of get away with it. You know, I always tell that joke about intelligent people who see me and say, Senator, when are you going back to Washington? If I don't want to talk to them, I'll say, I'm leaving in the morning. People who ought to know, by and large, a lot of people don't know what goes on in county government. You got me? Those of you from Houston, until the mosquitoes went crazy 3 days ago, everybody thought the city handled that until that happened. Tony, hit that next slide. In this building, a lot of times we always make the case, we say, one of our favorite sayings is, thank God for Mississippi. I mean, that just kind of tells it all. It's all online. I mean, you know, you could make the argument that, well, it's not just about money. Okay. Make that argument on funding prosecutor offices then. That is not just about money. Average prosecutor's office in this state is at least double, usually considerably more than the amount of money that you spend on indigent defense. We ought to respect our United States Constitution. I want to make the pitch to you that throughout this day in this conference, this is an opportunity where you bring all of the players in the room face to face to look at one another. What they did in Harris County, not because it's my home county, it's kind of interesting. I don't think it has happened in that many counties. When the heat was getting on, Norm, after you all gave me some award at a ABA conference in Los Angeles, and you know, outside the state compared to where we were, it's like I was Goliath, and you know, and I was sitting there thinking, this is really embarrassing. I hope at my funeral that they could say I did more than just go past a piece of legislation. And my county had done very little. I was kind of embarrassed to see Lubbock moving on their own. I hadn't been over there calling it, whatever it was, Jim, one person, I'm told, in part to be the spark to go get that moving up in West Texas. So I decided to do an op-ed to try to get some sex appeal on it. We wrote it, my staff wrote it, and we got Barry Scheck to sign it with us, kind of stir things up. And then it was just, you know, all the stars lined up. The prosecutor was having some problems in Harris County, so it ended up being a window there to have some discussion. And there was so much intense media scrutiny on the prosecutor and problems with the sheriff's department. Something prompted, maybe when the folks of Harris County talked, something prompted, jail overcrowding was an issue, for them to put together a criminal justice council. You know, you can't have 3 county commissioners have Fabello in a room and they have a discussion unless it's public. And sometimes you got to have a private conversation. Don't tell, I get all those media awards, but you know, so you, within the rules, you got to have a private conversation. Commissioners Court cannot do it with 3, you violate open meetings. So they put together this council. There are 2 commissioners on it. They're all elected officials. They ought to think, in my judgment, at some point, since we don't elect the public defender, of making sure the public defender does not just go, but has a vote. It's only one vote in that discussion. Some places in the country, you know, they elect public defenders. But I think it's one of the few times they've had a serious discussion with all the players in the room. They contracted out with JMI. the Justice Management Institute, 50, 100,000. How much did you all pay for that report? 25? What you know what it cost? You remember? What if it cost to do that report, you know, independent third party, to come back with a lot of recommendations? One of the recommendations was, the way I read it, pretty much for some version of a public defender. We ought to encourage that dialogue in every county in this state. Look, I want to welcome you to your state capitol. I want to thank you for coming. I want to commend all of you for the work that you do. I want to tell my staff that you wrote a wonderful speech, and it has been posted if anybody wants to read the rest of it. And it is good, some good stats in it. I'm not going to read it because I'm sitting in my office trying to go through it. I don't read well when I'm reading from a podium. And so then I decide, I'm going to follow this and make my staff proud. Then you down here like you DiCaprio or somebody, you're going to show a video. You just wait till I take you back to your homeland over there to Cuba, now that the Batista regime is not in power, and take you bike riding. And then I'm gonna put you on the video. What you do in this space matters. If you put your name on a ballot, it's not something you do because it's gonna help you get votes. I'm not stupid. I understand how politics works. If I have an opponent, I don't think I'm gonna be out there campaigning on I protected the innocent from going to jail. This is something you do because at the end of the day, when you're not putting your name on the ballot and you asking yourself, did my life really matter? This is something you do because it's right. Thank you.